So I've been designing this cardigan with all this color work at the bottom, which I'm excited about. But I'm sure, as you know, part of the design process is trying it on over and over again and putting it on the dress form. And this steek here in the middle is starting to get irritating because it makes it much harder to do all of that. So today we're going to sew and cut our steek so it's easier to design the sweater. All right, so the first step to cutting your steek is sewing up. We're going to sew up and down on this side and up and down on this side. We are going to use a much lighter yarn than the sweater is knit with, so that our stitches can get deep down in there. And when we worked our steek, we alternated the yarn so that when we sew it, we can get every strand caught up in our stitches. Okay, so I'm going to turn the work and start sewing. And like I said, I'm going to sew up this side. I'm going to leave that tail dangling. And I'm going to just make sure I'm catching every row here as I go. And you'll see that I'm sewing up the middle of this set of stitches. All right, we did all the way up one side. Now we're going to turn. And so we're going to come back down this row of stitches here. And doing it on two different columns of stitches just double reinforces it. You do not absolutely have to sew up your steek. If you're using a yarn like Lopi that's a little less processed, a little scratchier, that felts up really easily, it'll just felt itself into place and you can leave it. But this yarn is a merino alpaca blend and it doesn't tend to felt. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew up my steek before I cut it. Now I've come back to the beginning there. I'm going to cut that off and tie this up, and I will weave in the ends later. And then I'm going to repeat the process on this side, and then we're going to cut up this middle row of stitches. I always do 7 stitches for my steek so that I have plenty of room for the sewing and the cutting. Alrighty. Now I'm going to do this side, and then in just a moment we will cut. All right, we've sewed up this row. I'm going to use a pointer. Up this row and down this one, and then up this row and down this one. Then we have a row with no stitching, and then we have our center row, which is what we're going to cut. Now, there's no hurry, so let's cut slowly and carefully up our center row of stitches and free our steek. Ta-da! Now, while we're working, it's going to roll back. But when we're all done and we're ready to attach our button band, we can pick up these stitches. This will fall back into the sweater, and if we want, we can sew this down so that it doesn't flop around.